Look, it's brutal for Iowa State fans that Matt Campbell is leaving. I don't think that there is any sugarcoating the fact that Iowa State football is going to take, at least in the short term, a step back here. Matt Campbell was responsible for, full stop, not even close, the best stretch of football in Iowa State history. It was statue worthy. I believe Jamie Pollard, the athletic director, even said that. The guy should someday have a statue in Ames because that's how important what he did was. Only double-digit win season ever with the 11 wins last year. Best 3-year stretch in Iowa State history the last 3 years. 8 of the 11 seasons he's been there, rank among the best in Iowa State history. The guy's been incredible. And he's done it without a ton of help. We talk about Texas Tech and money. Iowa State is out-resourced by a lot of schools in the conference. And Matt Campbell was the great equalizer with that. He would just make up for so much of that. He would do it through a bunch of injuries, right? This year, each of the last 2 years, there were a slew of injuries for Iowa State. And he took them to the Big 12 championship game last year and finished 8-4 this year. Half of his starting defense was gone for the season due to injury by late October. And they still went 8-4 this year, which historically one of the better seasons in Iowa State football history. So he's a total stud. I think he will have success at Penn State. Do I definitively think he's better than James Franklin? I don't know about that, but I think he can be of the same caliber at least, which is not a discussion I think any of us care about as much, but it's a huge loss for Iowa State. It's a huge loss. And I genuinely, I know that I've had my moments in the past of, and this is understating it, I get it, Iowa State fans, I was a troll for sure, starting 6-7 years ago, talking about what, the Iowa State K-State rivalry, I played into it a ton, and I had a lot to say about Matt Campbell and a 7-5 ceiling and all that. And I knew the history and how impressive that was at Iowa State, but when it's a rivalry, you dig into it, and guess what? Matt Campbell made me look really stupid by the end of his tenure there, right? Beat me into submission. Whether I matured a little bit and laid off anyway is of no consequence to the fact that he beat me into submission. About the time the Abu Sama snow game happened, it was just this is just what's going to happen every year. And then he beat K-State 2 more times after that. Chris Kleiman finished 2-5 with a negative 63 point differential against Matt Campbell. Great coach. And I know exactly how much he meant to Iowa State football. And I've seen the fan reaction in Ames, and I feel for you guys, man. It's the most brutal part of the sport when you have a beloved coach like that leaves, and you have so much to process. That's the other thing that I feel for Iowa State fans and players, because immediately within the hour, Jimmy Rogers was announced as the head coach at Washington State, won a national title at South Dakota State before that. Jamie Pollard had that lined up, and I know there's a lot of debate. Iowa State fans didn't seem to love my take, hey, that's a pretty good AD that had that lined up and ready to go already, so that you don't have this period of players wondering what's going on. And Jamie Pollard knew what he wanted to do. It doesn't seem like people are totally stoked on the hire, I guess is a part of the point there and a part of the problem. I understand that's a lot for everybody to process. Jimmy Rogers may be a great hire. He might not be. I don't know that I have a super strong opinion on that. It seems fine. If you can't get Nathan Shieldhouse, which is who I would have wanted to go after if I were an Iowa State fan, I think that's a fine hire. No idea if it'll work or not. But yeah, the odds of him being Matt Campbell are definitely slim. So it's a brutal pill to swallow for a fan base. Probably made a little bit better by the fact that you just beat the number 1 team in the country in basketball by about 100 points yesterday. So that will help. But what I will say is, I know there seemed to be some frustration about not making Taylor Moser the offensive coordinator, the head coach. Jamie Pollard, I thought, at least had reasonable enough explanations in the interviews that he was given about that, where he said, hey, I basically just, it's the same conversation I had with TJ Otzelberger at one point in time, which is I don't think you're ready for this quite yet, but maybe it'll come back around. It did with TJ Otzelberger. He got hired, and that's worked out phenomenally. If your concern is we want to keep guys around on the roster for next year and you elevate the offensive coordinator, it does that. I get it, and it's not a good time to be cratering a program for a couple of years to build it back up. But you also do have to, if you don't think a guy's ready, man, that's still going to hurt you. The bill will come due later as opposed to sooner, but that bill will still come due at some point. You got to go hire. You got to go hire a head coach that you think is right and ready at some point. So I will just say, at least I thought Jamie Pollard had reasonable explanations. I appreciated what he said about Matt Campbell, that, this is not me in like burn it down mode. This is not me saying that he owes us anything. Matt Campbell does not owe us anything. He stuck around for over a decade when he had multiple job opportunities, NFL and college, to leave, and he didn't. And so I appreciate that perspective a lot from Jamie Pollard. And I get it if you're a fan and you're not there yet. You don't want to have that perspective. You want to burn everything down and be angry. I totally get it, man. I totally get it. But I do think that is ultimately the correct take here about Matt Campbell. Guy did unbelievable work there. And, it's a Penn State job. It's a Penn State job. Like, I know it's trust the process, and I love what I have in Ames and all that. It does seem like the family part was legit. What Jamie Pollard talked about, that his wife in particular, I think, has some family that's, having some health issues, that living in State College, Pennsylvania would allow them to see them much more often. I do believe that with Matt Campbell, that's a legitimate part of it. I can also believe that, hey, perhaps NIL support or lack thereof, or the way that they were using NIL, could be a part of that too. I'm sure there are a lot of factors. But at the end of the day, he stuck around for 11 years through everybody coming, and guys that are staying around long-term like that, like a Bill Snyder, stayed for the better part of 30 years at K-State. That is total exception to the rule. And I think making it 11 years was even exception to the rule for Matt Campbell here. So it sucks. It's tough. But I do think you kind of just have to tip your cap and say thanks at the end of the day. And for the Big 12, it's definitely a loss for the Big 12. As just a Big 12 guy, I think it sucks for the league. It's a great coach that had stuck around for a long time, and it was kind of a point of pride for the league, that it's like, hey, everybody and their dad wants to come around and try and take Matt Campbell out of Ames, Iowa, but he has stayed here. He has stayed committed to the Big 12 Conference. It's tough, especially when you combine it with like Chris Kleiman, another guy, a Big 12 champion head coach who just decided to step down and retire. You almost lost Kalani Sitake also to that Penn State job. Like, tumultuous time. You want to keep great coaches in the league. There are always going to be people sniffing around in the Power 2 trying to poach your coaches. I hate losing him for the Big 12, but it's just one of the tough realities of college football. You have a guy that's doing that kind of work at a program where historically it's been tougher to win at, and there might not be the greatest NIL support in the world. That is going to be an unfortunate reality that typically will pop up at some point. So, again, feel for you, Iowa State fans. I do. I know many of you won't want to hear it or won't believe me. That's fine. I'm just telling you where I'm at right now. TM Gel, what's up? TM Gel says, I do want to recognize Texas Tech having arguably one of the best teams in college football history. The first team to win 12 games by at least 20 points. Incredible. There you go. Thank you, TM Gel. Good historical perspective to close with on the Red Raiders here. You are correct there. Historically good defense as well. I'm trying to remember the stat Gambling Gauchos had. It's like they had surpassed 2009 Nebraska with Ndamukong Suh as the best defensive effort for a season in the conference. Totally get why. I was walking down the field. I can't remember if I talked about this in the postgame, but I walked down on the sideline in warmups and was hanging around Texas Tech. Like, dude, they just have some freaks. You go stand at field level next to them. Just freaks. I mean, even like, I'm looking at them like handing the ball off to Terrence Carter at one point yesterday, or kind of using him in like a screen game. He's a tight end, but I mean, like Terrence Carter was massive. Like, just Lee Hunter. I walked right past. If you guys follow me on Instagram, I think might have been the only place. No, I posted it on Twitter at J. Okurtz. At J. Okurtz, follow me there on Twitter. I posted that video where I was like in the tunnel. I randomly wound up in the tunnel the same time Tech was coming out on the field at one point, and I'm right next to Lee Hunter, and I'm just like, dude, what? It's like, this dude is going to run me over. Terrence Carter actually almost did run me over, and that's why the video got a little shaky there for a moment. So, yeah, makes sense that they have a historically good defense. Those guys are monsters. All right, TM Gel, thank you for your support. Pacific Northwest U, congrats to BYU being repped by Jake Retzloff in the playoff. That's a pretty good little dig, Pacific Northwest U. I will give you that. That's a pretty good dig. Jake Retzloff and Tulane do make it to the college football playoff after all that. In some ways, he gets the last laugh. But this is why I say, yeah, I get it, Pacific Northwest U. That's crazy. That's a good dig.